Yay. All right, perfect. Well, welcome. I am very glad you're here. Today we're going to talk about money and mindset and what I call magic, and specifically why so many people that I talk to, especially smart, capable, confident, even women, have struggled to find ways to fix their money issues that are able to stick. They tend to try and work through things on their own and kind of have a two steps forward, three steps back kind of way of doing things. But before we get started, I want to set some expectations. This is not a fix everything in an hour type of workshop. I don't even think this workshop will take an hour, to be perfectly honest, but I gave us that much time just in case. This is more just about clarity and about understanding and about where things might be breaking down in what you've already been trying so that you actually know what to work on next. We are going to try and save questions all the way to the end. If you do have anything that comes up that you don't want to forget, feel free to type it in the chat, and afterwards I'll go back and take a look. But if I were to look at the chat while I'm doing this, this will turn into a 4 hour long event because I will just go off on all of the tangents. So we're going to try to not do that because we want to make sure I am doing a good job of my time management and making sure I'm not taking up too much of your time. All right, so first, who am I and why am I teaching this? My name is Jessica Kleine. I am just a regular person who has had a pretty messed up relationship with money in the past. For most of my adult life, I have definitely had some issues with money that I have been working through on my own. I have over 2 decades of small business and personal development experience. I have been around the block a few times. I also have a degree in psychology, so I speak human. I don't speak finance, even though people tend to put me in the finance space. But I have been in this money coaching space for over 6 years now. I am also what I call an accidental bookkeeper. I started bookkeeping on the side about 5 years ago, purely by accident, and that has actually helped me with my money coaching business because I'm able to see things on the entrepreneur side and the small business side to help the women even more that I usually coach. I'm a homeschool mom. I've been doing that for over 10 years. I'm also a competitive archer, which is a little fun little tidbit that we're going to talk a little bit about in this little presentation. I'm also a closet artist. I have painting supplies set up actually right over here by my desk. I don't do it nearly as often, but it's something that's fun that allows the creative side of me to come through. And I'm a fantasy nerd. I wear dragons. I read all of the fantasy books, and those are my favorite kind of movies. Now, if you're here, you probably already know that there is a money issue in your life somewhere, okay? Most of the time, if you're in my world, it is because you have tried lots of different things, and you're trying to find like that secret sauce. You've probably tried budgets, you've probably tried apps, I'm sure you've done mindset work, you could be into meditation, manifestation type practices. You may have been somebody who read all the books, you may have worked with a coach. You probably took some courses or some programs or something to try to figure out that missing piece that you feel like you cannot seem to find. You're probably somebody who feels like you're kind of stuck at enough. You might not be unsafe with your money. You know, your bills are probably getting paid. You're not living in a cardboard box somewhere, but you're not really feeling like you're expanding. You're in a space where just enough is coming in, but it never feels like there's more that's coming in. Now, this workshop is for that specific space. When people hear the word manifestation, because that is something that I'll toss out here and there, they often think it's very sparkly, very like unicorns and kind of faking it until you make it, or just thinking positive thoughts, you know, all of the law of attraction type stuff. That's not what I am really talking about, even though there is some truth to all of that. Manifestation just means to make something real. And whether you believe in it or you don't believe in it, you're kind of doing it all the time anyway. You are always manifesting. The difference is whether or not you're doing it unconsciously or intentionally. Your thoughts and everything that you have kind of pre-programmed in there, which we're going to talk about, is kind of guiding every decision that you make. Most of us are running on autopilot. Our beliefs and our habits and even our emotional responses are shaping all of the results in our life without us realizing it, for the most part. So when money feels random or unpredictable, or you don't know where it's coming from and you don't know where it's going, it's usually not. It's just happening outside of our actual conscious awareness because we're living on autopilot. So one of the goals through this whole process of figuring out money is how to shift from just kind of letting things happen and intentionally shaping what we want to have happen. So this is the loop that a lot of women are stuck in. You have a belief, whether it's something that you're conscious of or not. It's some kind of a story that you have in your head, and that belief causes you to find proof that backs up that belief. This is where, like, it's science was on one of the other slides. You have different, I'm not going into the science, a lot of you probably already know it, but that belief is going to cause you to find proof that proves that belief. And when you do that and you find that proof, you're going to start reinforcing that belief. And when you reinforce that belief, you're going to find more proof that sticks to that belief, and around and around and around it goes. So if you've ever heard somebody say that that was just a fluke, maybe you've said it yourself. Something happened. Oh, I never win contests, and you win something. Oh, that's just a fluke. That's your belief talking because that's proof that doesn't line up with that internal subconscious belief that you never win anything. Okay. So we want to try to figure out how to break the loop. And this is also why just doing more rarely works when it comes to things like money and even business and all of that kind of stuff. You just end up reinforcing the same patterns, but with more effort. So you get more and more and more stuck because doing more of the same thing is not going to do anything to change your beliefs. So I have found over the years, I was really big on money, and then I was really big on money and mindset, and I was still stuck myself. I have finally figured out that there is a way to make sustainable money change that it actually requires three things. I, for the longest time, thought it was money and mindset. So somewhere I figured I had like a screw loose in the mindset or the money. There was something that wasn't quite right, but I think I was still missing a piece, and that piece is what I call magic. Now, most women focus on only one or maybe two of these elements. Like I said, really big on the money when I first got started. It was all about the numbers and all about the budgeting. And then the more I got into the coaching world, oh, it's definitely mindset and it's about the stories I have and the beliefs I have. The magic piece it didn't really pop up until the last year or two for me. And that's when I have kind of figured out that's where things break down. You need to be able to pay attention to all three of them. And you need to, I don't want to say balance them because it's not like equal amounts of all of them. It's more of a harmony where they are working together instead of working against each other. That's the key that I think most women are missing is you need all three of these elements in order to really have that abundance that people talk about that we all want that seems just out of reach. So the first element is money. And when I say money here, I don't mean income. Okay. This is the structure of anything money related in your life. So these are your habits with your money. These are the systems or the processes you have set up when money comes in or money comes out. Like how do you pay your bills and when do you pay your bills? These are the actions that you take with your money, all of the decisions, what you choose to buy, what you don't choose to buy, what you choose to save for, what you don't choose to save for. It's also your capacity. So how much can you hold? How much can you handle? Whether it's how much savings, how much debt. A capacity issue is actually a lot of the times one of the biggest problems with this element. But this is the logical, practical part of money. This is the part that people assume you're talking about when we are trying to learn money things. And it does matter. The numbers are important. You do need to know logically what's going on with your money. The problem is this is the part that we tend to put the most time, effort, and focus into because we've been led to believe that all it takes is to save more and to spend less, and money's just a math problem and all of that. But if that were actually the case, we wouldn't have the issues that we have today. And it's not just a few people that have issues. Almost all of the people that I have ever met in my whole life have issues with money. So money is not just a math problem. I have worked with women across a huge range of income, all the different income levels. So whether they made a little bit of money or they made a lot of money, whether they had more money and less lattes was never actually the solution to the problem. Making more money doesn't make the money problems go away. It actually tends to make the money problems bigger if you don't fix the actual cause of what's going on. So, one of the issues I see is a lack of space and awareness, which is technically, I guess, two issues. Two of the issues I see is a lack of space and a lack of awareness when it comes to money. You can't receive more, and a lot of you, logically, we know this. We can't bring in more financially or energetically if everything's already full. Okay, so like if you have a lot of financial clutter in your life, you have unused subscriptions, you have receipts that have to be filed, your bookkeeping is a mess, your budget is a mess. This financial clutter takes up space. Same with mental clutter. If you are overthinking all of your decisions, if you have a lot of open-ended loops in your brain where you don't make decisions because you're avoiding decisions, if you have a lot of to-do lists that just hang out in your head instead of live on a list somewhere, that's all mental clutter that's taking up mental space and mental energy, which would be useful someplace else. Same with physical clutter. You can't put something new or better in an overstuffed closet. You know, we always feel so much better spring cleaning, cleaning out a closet, cleaning out a drawer because we're making space. If you're surrounded by chaos, it's difficult for your brain to be able to focus on doing more or doing better because all it sees is the chaos all around. Beyond the clutter, if you're only focusing on what's going out and not what's coming in, you're also missing a huge piece of the money puzzle. Now, a lot of us are business owners, so obviously tracking your expenses is very important. You need to be, even if you're not a business owner, just to be able to pay your bills, tracking your expenses is important. You have to be aware of where your money is going, but we tend to forget to track the abundance that comes in as well. We see the income, but we don't see the abundance. When you start tracking that, it starts to create more space and it starts to feel like magic because you start seeing more of it everywhere you look. So I have had clients just from this little money clutter chunk here. I've had clients find hundreds and sometimes thousands of dollars just from clearing some of their money clutter. And it's not usually just a one-time thing. You know, maybe they sold a bunch of clothes and they made $300 or something on eBay or something. But a lot of times they're able to gather up hundreds of dollars month after month after month from checking their Amazon, checking the subscriptions, all of that. And when you repeat it month after month after month, it starts to multiply and kind of compound together. When you can clear out the clutter and make some space and then actually become aware of your money and what it's doing, you can tend to be really surprised with the results just from that. So this is a testimonial from Chris, one of my first clients, when I was focused pretty much almost entirely on the first element of money. And Chris says within the first month and a half, we saw results. And by the third month, I was shocked to see the amount of money that we had left over simply by allotting our money each payday. I made sure that they were paying attention to the money coming in. It's been awesome, and so is Jessica for helping us with this. Can't recommend this enough. The best way we have come across in terms of managing money, and we will continue to use it. Thank you, Jessica. You're welcome, Chris. Um, now we're going to take a minute to do a quick exercise. I want you to write down at least one thing related to money or to business that you've outgrown, but you are still carrying. Okay. This could be a subscription that you don't use. This could be guilt over the money that you spent on a course that you never finished. This could be a client or a customer who drains you, but you're afraid to let go of. I want you to take a minute to make a list of actually what comes up. And I'm going to take a drink while you think about it. All right, and then as you're working on this list, I want you to understand that this isn't about fixing the list that you're coming up with. This is just noticing what comes up with asking this type of question and where you can eliminate some of the clutter and make some space in your life. Most likely something probably came up right away, and the more you sit with this, the more you'll come up with other things, sometimes big, sometimes small. These are all areas where you can start to make some changes and start creating some space to allow more to come into your life. Now, number two on this slide is something else that's super useful that I have started doing with all of my clients is to start tracking every single thing of value that you receive. So keep a notebook, start a spreadsheet, put a little note in your phone, and anytime something of value comes your way, you're going to track how much that is. So I'm not just talking about your income or your paycheck or a contract for a client, but like the change you find on the sidewalk, the nickel that you found on your couch. Maybe you used a coupon the last time you went shopping, or you cashed in reward points and got something for free. Um, Maybe a friend of yours bought you a coffee, so there's $7 you could add to your list. Anytime you get a gift, anytime you get something of value to you, even if it's not money, I want you to start tracking it every day. And I would say for 30 days, but most people get really upset when I tell them that. So like start with 5, start with 3. The whole point of this is to track everything that comes your way so you can see everything that is coming at you that is of value. We spend so much time focused on what's going out and not nearly enough time about what's coming in. And as we've all heard, where your focus goes, your energy flows. So in this case, we want to focus more on what's coming in instead of only what's going out. By doing this, it has changed the way people see things all the time. And I'll tell you a little bit about more later, but it feels magical because you get paid, you have a paycheck or a client or whatever. That is kind of assumed money, but we forget to look at how much we saved with this or how much money came in with that. And when you can start looking at the value of everything instead of just the value of the dollars, it actually shifts something in your brain and helps you to see more of it coming your way. So the next element is mindset. So we're going to talk about that one. And this isn't just positive thinking. Toxic positivity is a thing and it hides a lot of other issues, but that's not what we're going to talk about here. Mindset in this case is the subconscious software that's running in the background. Okay, this is your beliefs, this is your identity, this is the stories that you have about money. And the thing is, you were not the one who programmed this software. That's the first thing you have to realize. The software that you have running having to do with your money mindset was developed when you were a kid, based on the beliefs and the actions and the way you perceived life from the adults that were raising you, basically. The adults in our lives are who influenced our money mindset. So for a lot of people, that software has never been upgraded. We've never done anything to change it, even though it was set for us back when we were kids. So the thing about mindset is you think you're making logical decisions when it comes to money. You sit and you think about it and you think about the best path forward and all of that. But all of those pre-programmed beliefs are actually what's making the decisions for you. So even though you're thinking logically, that logic is based on programming from when you were a kid. So the way you spend your money, the way you save your money, the way you decide what to do with your money, and even how you make your money or how you think it's possible to make money. All of these things are based on beliefs and your view of yourself with money. So I want you to start paying attention to sentences that start with I can't because. These sentences feel like facts, okay? Now, sometimes I don't want to use the words excuses. We'll use reasons. Sometimes we say I can't because I have something else to do, blah, 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 blah. That's not what we're talking about here. This is having to do with choices you do or do not make, having to do with your money, having to do with your business, that feel like facts. They feel like things that are set in stone. They feel like truth, but they're actually usually beliefs. And because these beliefs are so wired in our subconscious, we don't see them as stories. We don't see them as things that can change. So these stories make it seem like there's no other choice or option. And then as soon as you toss that word can't in there, it shuts the door on any other possibilities. Not too long ago, I was talking with somebody on the phone and she was stumped with figuring out one of her money blocks, for example. She couldn't make money, she said, because of this one particular block that she could not find or even name. She just knew she had one. So her story was, I can't because I have a money block. It felt like truth to her. But once we started talking about the circumstances, it turns out that she was making money, but she had pricing and boundary issues. But because she held the story that it has to be a money block, she assumed it wasn't something that could be easily fixed. So, of course, there's actual for sure money blocks out there and mindset issues and all of that. But sometimes even just the stories that we know we have a story keep us from seeing a simpler solution. Sometimes there is something that's an easier fix. So this is one of my clients named Barb. And when she came to me, she had a lot of thoughts about money. And one of her biggest I can't statement or sentences was along the lines of, I can't do better with money because I don't make enough consistent income. And I see this a lot with a lot of the women in my world. She was an entrepreneur with the belief that she couldn't handle money because it was always too random. So, do you see how that belief could potentially hold her back from doing things differently? If you think you can't do better, there's not really a drive to do better because you assume this is just the way it is. After the fact, she had written the mindset portion is what we've been missing. The first time we had money left over at the end of the month, I actually cried. The feeling was overwhelming gratitude. We never could have done this on our own, and we look at our finances in a completely different way. So Barb had a lot of life-changing, life-changing changes in her life. That was the weirdest comment I think I've ever made. That happened after we were working together. Um, because she was able to shift her mindset around what money looks like to her and to her family. And we were able to change the story that she kept saying to herself. So, another exercise I want us to do, having to do with mindset, I want you to write down a sentence you say about money or business that feels true to you. So, a thought, a belief, something that you hear yourself saying pretty frequently. And then I want you to find the assumption that's inside of it. Okay, so for example, I can't raise my prices because people won't pay that. The assumption here is people won't pay that. It feels like fact, but it's really just a belief about your audience or about your value, or it could even be a projection of what you would be willing to pay in the same kind of situation. So, another example, because I was kind of stuck on this myself. The popular, I'm just not good with money. The assumptions with that kind of a statement are that money skills aren't learnable, that past mistakes are going to define my future, or even something as simple as I lack the ability to become good with money. So, as you guys are sitting there, I want you to take a minute and write down something that you say frequently about money, and then come up with that belief, that hidden belief that's inside of it that's probably holding you back. I don't want you to rewrite it. I don't want you to fix it. I just want you to recognize that it's not actually a fact. It's just a thought in your head. All right. And then the final element is magic. And this is the part that a lot of women, myself included, struggle with. Magic here is not about wishing. It's not about a magic wand. Um, it's nothing like out there like that, but it feels like some people have it and some people don't. Okay. Um, it feels like no matter what you do, there's something that's missing. And I do believe that this tends to be the piece, that this is the missing piece. The magic here is about your nervous system. It's about your emotions. It's about your energy. It's about the different cycles that you're in your life and the different seasons. The kicker here is that this part doesn't stand alone. A lot of times we try to separate the magic, all of this stuff, from money because money feels logical and hard, or think in terms of like masculine versus feminine energy. We tend to want to separate them and work on them very separately. But that's not what happens here. The magic needs to work with the other two. They're all kind of part of the same picture. They all belong together. So here's a shift that a lot of people don't necessarily think about. But when you're thinking about goals, we're still at the beginning of the year. A lot of people have a lot of goals. Um, Something that I've come to realize is that you don't actually want the goal. You want the feeling that you believe the goal is going to give you. So, like people say they want $1 million, just plucking a number out of the thing. $1 million, okay, but why? Like, you're not just going to sit on a pile of money. It's just a number in the bank. Like, what is it that $1 million is going to actually get you? The safety, maybe for somebody. You know, it's safe. It's knowing you have choice. It's finding the feeling that actually fits with the thing that you think you want. So some examples are safety or stability, maybe relief. You know, a lot of people want to pay off all of their debt. Okay, that's a relief thing. It has nothing to do with the actual debt. It has to do with the feeling that not having it will bring you. Groundedness is another key feeling that people are after that they don't realize. calm, accomplishment. You want to think about the feelings that are behind the actual goal thing. Because if you don't have the feeling, if you skip this step, any kind of goal that you set for yourself is never going to feel satisfying. When you reach the goal, cool, but then you're going to end up moving the goalpost to something else. You never really get to the end point when you have these kind of goals in place. Now, in archery, we talk about emotional control and how important it is when we're on the line for archery. Now, the key here with these different feelings and these emotions and this magic is a lot of us, we want those high vibe feelings. We think we want the excitement and we want those feelings, the fun, the feelings that make us feel alive, right? And those are good feelings. Huge highs can feel amazing, but they're not sustainable. Same with huge lows. Huge lows feel lousy, but luckily those also not sustainable. The sweet spot that we want is a centered, regulated, grounded, sure of ourselves kind of feeling. That's what we want. That's what we're looking for. Now, in archery, it's important because you're trying to replicate shot after shot after shot. The closer you can get to doing everything exactly the same over and over and over again, the more consistent the shots will be. So then your scores will be better. If your body is relaxed and your mind is clear and you're centered, then you can execute those shots cleanly. When your emotions are all over the place, whether it's highs or lows, it's pretty much impossible to stay consistent. Not only that, but when your emotions are spiking, when you have those spikes of high or spikes of lows, it shuts down the rational part of your brain, the thinking part of your brain, which makes decision making more than a little difficult. The same thing applies to money and business. Okay? If your emotions are spiking, if your nervous system is dysregulated, if you're constantly living in fight, flight, fawn, or freeze, you're going to have a hard time thinking clearly, let alone being consistent in your business or with your money. And most likely, you'll be making a lot of less than ideal in the moment, probably not great for your future self decisions. Okay? When we're basing everything on emotion and the highs and the lows and what's happening right now at this very second. That's why some of the most powerful feelings, like excitement, isn't the feelings of excitement aren't the most powerful feelings in this kind of a situation. Okay, that buzz feels real good. Like I just shot a personal best last night on a score, so it felt amazing. But the odds of me feeling personal best every single time I get up to the shooting line is pretty slim. The buzz feels amazing, but it's not sustainable, so it's not helpful when you're trying to create lasting results. Short term, yes, it will affect things for the short term for sure, but it's not going to necessarily be lasting because it's not sustainable. So I want to tell you about one of my long-term clients. When we had first gotten started, she was tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars in debt. She had a borderline addiction to online shopping and auction sites. She was surrounded with chaos at home and at work. So her life was kind of all over the place, and her emotions were all over the map. One of the many things we worked on was regulating her nervous system and her emotions. Over time, we were able to kind of decode what was setting her off. And then she was given some tools to help her become more proactive in those kind of situations. She could anticipate what was going to happen. She knew how to regulate herself in order to stay calm. We paid attention to the different patterns and the different cycles that showed up in her life so that she could see that these things weren't random or unrelated. Once she was aware of what was going on, then she could control it instead of blame it, which is what a lot of us get kind of stuck in. We get in a blame cycle, and that kind of changed everything for her. It's the whole idea of shifting from like a victim mentality, not that I would ever call her that or say that about her, but shifting from that kind of a space to the space of somebody who is watching and observing what's going on and able to make decisions based on like a bigger picture. So she has since, we worked together for years, and she has since paid off almost all of that debt. She has a healthy savings account. She was able to move out of a house that was literally falling down around her. She quit a job that was triggering her so much day after day after day. And not only that, but she also survived a traumatic near-death accident. And instead of falling back into all of her old patterns, she was able to get through it with only some minor setbacks to all of her money situations. So we still keep in touch. We haven't worked together in a while, but we still keep in touch. And every single time I talk to her, I tell her how proud I am of her because of the commitment she made to herself. She was determined to figure it out and fix it. And so her life now looks totally different from when we first met. And she's happy. and she's calm and she's grounded. And because of all of that, she's been able to make decisions that are best for her and where she is now rather than letting her emotions run the show, which is what she was doing before. So, for our last little exercise, I want you to write down what is something that you're currently chasing? What is a goal that you are after? And then what is the feeling that you think it's going to give you? Because that's really the key here. And then I want you to think about that feeling and where do you already feel it? Even if it's only like brief little moments. So this is important because the more you can practice that feeling, the more likely it is that you'll ultimately reach that goal that you kind of think you're after. The reason this works is because you need to first become the type of person that has what you want. Okay, so future you that already has this, you need to become that future you that has that goal. And that type of person, that future you, already has that feeling that you're after. That's why we want to practice the feeling. The feeling is going to get us to the result. That's one of the reasons I want you to track all of that inflow and value that I mentioned earlier, not just your paychecks, not just the money. I want you to track the value because the more you see and can recognize everything that's coming your way, all of the value, all of the abundance, the more you're going to start feeling good about your money and you're going to start to see it everywhere. You're going to start to become the kind of person who expects to find money and value everywhere because you're already practicing. You're already looking for it. And the more you look for it, the more you're going to find it. The more you believe it, the more you're going to find the proof, which is going to then firm up the belief, which is going to find you more proof. It's a way to take that stuck loop and use it for good. So this is where the real change starts, is figuring out those feelings, figuring out that magic. That's the step that we seem to be missing. So most women tend to focus on one area and ignore the others. More strategy is not going to fix the nervous system issue. More mindset works is not going to fix a lack of structure with your money. And deep breathing will calm your body, but it's not going to reprogram those hidden beliefs that you don't see. This is not a motivation problem. This is not a discipline problem. Money issues tend to be a clarity problem. So let me ask you, this is one of those times I'll have you actually type it in the chat. Which element, money, mindset, or magic, do you think you need to work on most? If you're here live, go ahead and type it in the chat for me just so I can see. If you're watching the replay, since there is going to be the replay going out, I would love it if you send me a message or send me an email and let me know. I'm actually very curious to see, because as I've asked this question over the last few months, as I've been developing some programs, the answers have been surprising to me. So I'm curious what you guys think. All right. So I'm going to be the first to admit that I am a DIY person. I like to do it myself. But after years and years and years and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in coaching and courses and programs and all of that, something that I've learned is you cannot see your own blind spots. They live in the subconscious and in your nervous system. They live in the patterns and the cycles that you do not see because you're too far into it. They show up as facts when really they're stories, and they influence everything you do, even when you're trying your best to break the patterns. So even when you're trying and trying and trying, those blind spots could keep you searching for the solution to basically what's just a symptom, as opposed to the actual problem that's living beneath the surface. Now, this doesn't mean that you're broken, because this is not like this is kind of true across the board. We can't see our own blind spots, not because we're broken, not because something is wrong, but because we're human. You know, our brains are wired to protect us. So if it's going to protect you, it doesn't want you to have to kind of deal with some of those issues. Now, this workshop has been about awareness and clarity, and hopefully you have like an aha kind of moment from it. My one-on-one coaching, you knew this was coming. My one-on-one coaching is where we actually dig into you. That's where we identify where you need the most support. That's where we focus on the patterns that we find. And the work inside of the coaching is personalized to you depending on where you are with your own money in all of the different elements. I am not a cookie cutter kind of person for coaching programs. I like to get involved and dig into each and every person so that even though the common themes pop up, like especially with women, we tend to have a lot of issues with guilt, shame, and even embarrassment when it comes to money. There are common themes, but everybody is different. Everybody's story brought them to that spot from a different direction. And part of coaching is figuring out how to untangle all of those stories. So in my work, I think about this kind of like a cycle. In archery, we have what's called a shot cycle. We don't just pull back and hope for the best. There is an actual sequence that we repeat and refine until it becomes second nature, again, to build that consistency, to build the muscle memory in order to do it better and faster. And money works the same way. We anchor and we aim and we expand and then we release. Okay. So one-on-one coaching, what does it look like? Right now, I do have 12-week intensive packages. It's kind of like a core reset. We take a look at your money. We anchor into your money. We stabilize things. We get you feeling better about your money because if you don't feel safe or stable, the mindset and the magic has nothing to hold on to. And you're going to fall right back into your own thoughts and patterns. You have to get that like safety net feeling first in order to be able to proceed. We also take the time to unravel what's going on behind the scenes. We dig into your stories, we dig into your beliefs, and even your money personality. I am able to, during coaching, reflect back to you what I hear and then help you challenge your thoughts so that you can start to learn to reprogram yourself. This is where we talk about your self-talk. This is where the thoughts and beliefs that are hidden come to the surface because I can see it even if you can't when we're talking to each other. This is where we figure out where you need to aim your mindset in order to make the changes that you want to make. And then as for the magic, you receive support with how your body copes with money issues. We work on grounding exercises. We work with your own cycles, and we plot out the like emotional patterns so that you can understand the feelings instead of just being swept away by all the emotions from day-to-day life. And then once your nervous system gets on board, then you can start to expand in your life, in your business, and in your abundance. Now, as for what you can expect out of coaching, I can't promise you $1 million. I can't guarantee that you're going to pay off all your debt or even that your circumstances will completely turn around in 12 weeks together. Lots of amazing things have happened with my clients, but I make zero promises on that end. But I can tell you that you will learn skills and have tools that you can use long after our time is up. You'll see your money and yourself differently. You will become more confident, both in your money and in your decisions, and therefore in yourself. And you're going to be able to bounce back faster when challenges do come up because they will. Like, this is not, my magic is cool and all, but also life is going to just keep on lifing. That's just the way it goes. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, this sounds good, and you're tired of trying to piece it together on your own, I actually do have a next step that's not a giant leap right into a 12-week coaching package. But it still allows us to go a little bit deeper. And that's called an inner compass session. This is something new that I'm kind of toying with and playing with. It is a one-on-one where we do talk about your money patterns. We talk about how you're wired. We talk about what's driving your actual decisions. And then afterwards, I take all that information because there's also homework or pre-work that has to happen. I take all of the information, all of the insights, everything that I have gathered from getting to know you better, and I create like a personalized report for you. So this is like an insight to what's possible in my coaching for those of you who are not quite ready to jump right into a 12-week intensive, which I understand. So because I'm recording this, I'm going to be following up with everybody to send the replay if you're here live. If you do want one of these sessions, just let me know and I can send you all of the details. Number one, I am not a high pressure person. I am not going to try to convince you to do something you do not want to do. That is the opposite of what I try and do inside of my programs. Nervous system regulation is a thing. So I do not want to make people do things they're not ready for. That being said, I also will question you and make sure the answers you're giving me are true and not the stories that you're telling yourself. Now, the same thing goes for the people who are watching the replay. My contact information is on this slide, so you can reach out if you are interested in one of these Inner Compass sessions. They're going to be opening up as of the middle of March because next week I will be out of town. So that, for the most part, wraps up this Money Mindset and Magic workshop. Hopefully you had some takeaways that are going to help you moving forward. Hopefully you got a little bit more insight into what might be missing in what you've been doing with your money and where you might be stuck. And if you have any questions or anything like that, I am available to answer them.